Hey everyone, we are live. This is the Social Impact Level Up Live. We're talking about transforming your funding today. And I just realized that we're skipping ahead in what our overlays are. What I wanted to talk about with everyone here on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn and Facebook, wherever you're joining us, is just how are you thinking about transforming the funding that you're working with for your nonprofit or your social business? And sometimes we get stuck in this mindset of we need to keep doing things and we keep taking actions, but those actions aren't resulting in the money that we want. And it's good to see you guys, whoever is joining us. Drop a comment and let me know that you're here and where you're joining us from. And if you're interested in this topic and figuring out your own money situation for your social impact organization, let me know. Let me know what you're thinking about, what you're interested in. I want to hear, and I can incorporate that into what we're talking about today. So there's lots of content. Like I said, if you're on Instagram and you want to see the overlays and the slides and things that I'm showing, the videos that I'm showing today, hop over to LinkedIn or Facebook or one of the other streams or YouTube, Wendy Velos, and the same handle on everything. And you can see what we're talking about today. So transforming your funding strategies, next steps, tangible next steps, things that you can do as a founder, as a board member, as somebody who's in a leadership role, or even in a programmatic role in an organization that makes an impact in the community or makes an impact for others. And you don't have to take a lot of action, but you do have to take some action, right? We're all responsible for creating the change that we want to see. So if there are things within our own organizations that are not going well, what's within our locus of control is what we have to be thinking about. We may not always be the head of the organization, right? Sometimes we are. Like, I'm the owner of my own business, but I wasn't always the head of my organization. So what we're going to talk about today is not necessarily just for people who are at the top of their organization. Hey, good to see you, Rodrigo. So not only just for people who are at the top of their organization, but people who are working within organizations and have to work with others. This is all still relevant too. So we all are part of our funding mission, right? It doesn't matter what level of the organization you are. Making more money, making more profit, getting more money into your organization is all of our responsibility, but also making sure that we're serving our mission, we're making our impact, and we're actually getting to the outcomes that we want to get to, that we're supposed to get to. So transforming ourselves and our organization so that we can transform others. This is the concept that we're going to kind of underlie in all of the conversation today. So I wanted to clearly spell it out for you guys so that you're thinking about this as where do you fit in depending on what you have going on with your career at the moment. So I'm doing this live in the middle of the day because I wanted the folks who were in Central Time and at lunchtime, or the folks who are, just kind of hanging out at their desk in Eastern or Pacific US. But this is absolutely relevant as well to anyone who's joining us from anywhere else in the world, thinking about how funding works for your organization. Some of these principles might also apply to you. So let's hop in, let's get started. What are we talking about today? First, we're talking about our funding and what does it mean for our organization, and how do you assess opportunities for funding? What does that look like for you? And hey, Jason, good to see you on Instagram. And we're talking about strategy. Strategy is important for all of us. And I'll show a couple clips. I'll talk about strategy and why it's important for us to have a strategy, why funding is important in our overall organization's health and strategy. And then what do we all want? We all want to win, right? To be really clear, we want to win as social entrepreneurs so that other people can also win, so that communities can win, so that other organizations can thrive. So our goal here, our collective goal, our collective impact goal is to win. And I think that's okay for us to get into the mindset, especially the money mindset, that funding is important, understanding the different aspects of our funding. That is super duper important to us winning and to us helping others win as well. So funding, strategy, and winning, that is what we're talking about today. That is the big picture. And how do we do that? How do we get ready to win, right? How do we approach this? And I want to make sure that if you're, again, joining on LinkedIn or YouTube or any of the other places, let me know. If you're in the chat here on Instagram, if you have thoughts, let me know, and I'll be happy to go over any of these concepts like in more depth. So strategy is really important. And there's a couple of things that I tell people before they're even getting ready to think about, what does my funding look like? How do I get more funding? How do I grow with the funding that I have? These are important questions that you have to have a strategy to address. And if you don't have a strategy to address them, then sometimes you can start doing things that don't, like the actions you take don't align with the goals that you have. And especially if the goals that you have are money goals. So, how do you get ready to change or to create the nature of change for people? So you have to be ready. You have to be ready. Hey, good to see you, Sonia. You have to be ready for change, right? Like your organization, you as the founder, or your team, or the folks around you, you all have to be ready to put things in place quickly that are going to make changes within the organization. Readiness has a lot of different aspects, but I wanted to focus today at least on how do you like mentally get ready for looking at your funding. Some of those things include being honest about what your situation is right now, looking at your budgeting, looking at your capacity, looking at what you have available to you at the moment in terms of resources. Being ready includes a lot of different aspects, not just kind of like the legal ready as an organization, but also ready to make a bigger impact than you're already making. Willingness includes, willing to partner, willing to share data, willing to do a bunch of things that you need to do because a funder is asking you to do them. Like, so willingness might look different for every organization or even every funding opportunity, but you have to be willing to make that shift or to make those growth steps in order to get more funding and win. And then technically able, right? Like to have the skills to be able to do the work of scaling your organization or of bringing more funding into your organization. So not buckling under pressure or not having blocks in contracting and hiring and basic functions for your business that even as a nonprofit, you need to be able to fulfill in order to get big contracts or big grants or big funding opportunities. So ready, willing, and able are three concepts that are really super important to getting grants or being ready for grants or being ready for bigger pockets of money. And then the last one is just trying. Like, just try to actually get the funding that you're looking for. So whether you're transforming your funding streams to get more donations or you're transforming your funding streams to get more grant money, whatever the goal is for your organization, or more sales through your social business, you have to try strategies. You have to try to change your strategy, and you have to be ready and willing and able to enact the things that that new strategy requires. And when I bring this up, I think of one person who I recently spoke to on my podcast, the Social Impact Level Up podcast. So if you don't know, I have a podcast. It's an amazing podcast. I talk to all these interesting people, all social entrepreneurs. And yes, and Sonia thinks she also needs to get rid of the limiting beliefs, right? Yes, the limiting beliefs are also in that like willing space. Like, I'm willing to see a new future for myself. I'm willing to do what it takes to commit to that future. I'm able to take the steps that it takes to get to that future. Like, there's a lot of different things. Oh, yeah. And sorry, Sonia wants to join my video on Instagram. So if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, you're probably not going to be able to see Sonia, but you might be able to hear her. And the other thing about it is, with the limiting beliefs. Oh, hey, how are you, Sonia?
Good. I'm so glad to see you.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know that everybody can see you only because you're on Instagram, but I'm also live everywhere else. So they'll hopefully hear you. What did you want to add?
I'm so excited over this conversation because, Wendy, we talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
And all the time we constantly are teaching people that for them to be able to have abundance or to receive that money into their lives, they have to first and foremost let go of those limited beliefs. So in turn, to let go of limited beliefs means that you have to also realize that there's not a scarcity when it comes to money.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you're bringing this conversation to life because so many times we see so many people, especially women, that are building their businesses or moving forward in the industry. They get stuck. And so it requires them to really kind of do the homework or the necessary work to finding out and tapping into a deeper sense of where are these beliefs coming from? where is it stemming from, and really getting honest with it so they can open up and receive the money that are there for the funding. They receive the money that are there from maybe different ones that want to invest in their businesses as well. So I just wanted to come in and share that with you, but I love what you're doing as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad I was able to sort of add you to the feed of the other one. Sorry, everyone. It went sort of crazy, but I wanted people to be able to see what Sonia looked like because her makeup is flawless. I'm like, this is amazing.
Thank you.
As usual, as usual. And I think that the abundance mindset part is frustrating for some people because we are stuck in the helping fields of thinking that you can just help without needing resources, or why can't I just do this thing? It's just a nice thing to do for other people. And not always having the resources and feeling strapped for having to do work with less or be more successful with no resources. And so when you are asking for resources, you almost feel guilty because you're made to think like, oh, well, we know we've always done without, and now we're going to continue to do it. But, we don't need to. We need to ask for resources. So thanks for joining, Sonia. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Enjoying your live.
Thanks. Yeah, no worries. I always love when people join me, so that's awesome. All right, thanks for coming on. And so anyways, who's joining us on Instagram or any of the other feeds, we're talking today about transforming your funding for your organization, whether it's a business or a nonprofit that you use as a vehicle to help others. And there's a lot of pieces in that come into play. And so right now we're getting ready to dive deep into strategy. And I'm going to show a clip from a recent podcast guest who goes into this in a beautiful way. Her name is Carrie Tottingham. And it's a really, really awesome video. So if you're watching on Instagram, I'm just going to play it from my screen and you're going to watch it. But if you're on the live on the other platforms, you'll be able to see it. So let's pop into that really quickly.
I think a lot of people think that a strategy is a set of instructions. And whilst you need a set of instructions, you also need a plan for how all of those components are going to work together to be able to carry out that set of instructions. So explaining in that kind of language is great for working with organizations that maybe their strategy might not be set within their team. Their organization strategy might be set higher up or in a different place. And actually, the strategy needs to be tangible and relevant and visible at all levels of the organization. Otherwise, we do just get into that place where we're following a set of instructions and it can feel, it can impact the culture then. So it can feel like monotonous or lack of purpose, those kind of things.
Yeah. And so Instagram went crazy again. Sorry about that. So I wanted to make sure that people heard what Carrie was talking about, which was that the strategy of an organization and the culture of that organization are completely tied together. So if you're trying to change your funding strategy and you're taking these steps, you're ready, willing, and able to do what you need to do, and you're getting into the mindset of change, other people in your organization's culture may not be ready for change. Like they may not be ready to commit to what it takes to become a bigger organization or put processes in place that formalize things that traditionally were informal. And sometimes those kinds of barriers can be difficult and can cause strife within the organization. And one of the things I hear from organizations all the time and different partners is that people are really struggling with employee retention, that this is a really, really big problem, keeping people on their team, keeping people healthy, and keeping people happy and helping people thrive within the organizations that serve others. So it's a really big missed opportunity when we are not able to have people who are contributing and feel like they're thriving as well as individuals. So what I wanted to bring to you is how do we assess then the actions that we're going to take in order to move our strategy forward in a different way. So assessing your opportunities is the thing that I wanted to teach you today, and it's called the SAVE framework. It is 5 steps that you can take in order to figure out what are the actions that you're going to do in order to change your strategy. So serve is going back to the roots of who do you serve and how do you serve them? Thinking about, when you are serving, what are you doing exactly for whom, and what needs are you filling? Assessing then all of the funding opportunities in front of you and thinking about how you're aligning those opportunities to the needs that you are filling for the people that you serve. Then thinking on top of that, how does all of that get you to your vision? So if we're trying to create change, if we're using our nonprofits and our businesses as vehicles or catalysts for change, how then, when we reach our vision, will the world be different? And what action steps do we need to take in order to get there? And when you're thinking about the economics of all of this is where the funding comes into play. Funding opportunities come up all the time, but they may not be aligned with our vision. And in the assessment process, as we're going through the SAVE framework, we have to think about if a funding opportunity is not aligned with our vision or is not aligned with the amount of, say, the amount of capacity that we have to seek that funding, then this isn't maybe the right funding opportunity for us. And so you have to be honest with yourself as an organization when you're transforming your funding strategy about opportunities that are good for you and opportunities that are not good for you. And sometimes the opportunities that you have in front of you are opportunities that sound great, but they're going to stretch your organization to do something that you are not ready or you do not want to be doing. And I literally was just talking to an organization here in my community about this week, where they were describing having gotten grants, but then moving their whole programming into directions that they never intended because of the money that they committed to receiving. And it was sort of unintentional, probably, that this misalignment happened. But if you are looking for and assessing the opportunities and saying, this is in alignment with my vision, this does make sense with the energy that I have, the economics of this decision makes sense, then I should be able to take this money and have it align with my overall strategy with little problems, hiccups, those kinds of things, without feeling like I'm outstretching my organization. So the SAVE framework is very, very helpful for thinking about grant opportunities, thinking about changing, before budget cycles, how you complete a budget, different things like that, that you're able to look at the organization and look at its capacity, look at its vision, and really figure out what is the right direction for you and the funding that you want to seek in the future. And welcome, whoever's joining us on Instagram. I don't know who it is. Oh, it's still Rodrigo. Hey, Rodrigo. So common barriers, these things happen all the time, and it's really unfortunate because there are a lot of barriers to social entrepreneurship. And we were talking with Sonia earlier about the mindset barrier and how do I get out of that mindset, the money mindset barriers that exist. One of the things that comes up for people is they try once and they don't try again because the money mindset barriers tell us, oh, well, we weren't successful that time that we tried, or we tried something, it didn't work. And so now we don't want to do it again, or we're reluctant to invest again because of the fact that it's the trial wasn't successful. So if your trial isn't successful, then of course there's kind of like a negative reinforcement to doing it over again. But in the case of funding, especially in the case of looking for grant opportunities, you want to keep trying over and over again, because the more that you try, the better that you get at the process, but also the more refined your ideas get. So as you work through the planning processes, the strategy, identifying the things that you need to do to respond to a grant opportunity or to get funding or to talk to donors, those things help you to further define what that future vision is going to look like for your organization and how you're going to get there. So only trying once actually is not super beneficial to people. And sometimes organizations don't have a lot of capacity to keep looking at grants, or they don't even have like a full chief financial officer position. Especially if you're a small organization and you have limited capacity to do these things multiple times, it can be a barrier for you. And that's why learning and growing in these areas, honing your skills and investing in professional development to have the right capacity is important. Lesson number 2 is not believing in strategy. And I think that I can turn it over to, and on Instagram, I'll show you guys a clip from Kate from Kat Lecoq, who's actually one of my mentors as well, talking about how people kind of fail to invest in strategy. So let's watch this clip together real quick.
I've experienced that for myself, you know, and had to go and seek out somebody else to help me with my own business strategy, because I think when you're in it, sometimes it's just hard to get through like all the ideas you've got. And also, I think the hardest part I find, and I've found with clients, is almost the feeling of restricting yourself by putting it down in a framework or on paper. It's like, oh, there's no, I can never change the plan if I've written it down as a plan. And like we know that's not true. Like it's a structure to work by, but it's flexible. You can evolve it, and it will change. It's not going to be as written, but some element of us that really struggles with, yeah, those are the things I'd like to do, and those are the things I know need to happen to make that. But I don't want to put it on paper because that kind of like restricts me somehow. And I think a lot of social entrepreneurs are much more free flowing and creative and spontaneous. And so there's a kind of a bit of a jarring there with strategy and this spontaneity. And I think for anybody that feels that, I am definitely that kind of person too. And just know that having a strategy really, really does help. Like it just helps you know exactly what you should be doing week in, week out, and day in, day out if you've got the really good plan. And I've really seen it with clients work really well as in my own business, where, you know, rather than just almost firefighting and dealing with the next thing, or just being really busy working, but not actually moving towards where you want to get to.
Yeah, I love how Kat broke that down because I have definitely been guilty of doing work and not getting to where I want to get to because I was just doing busy work strategies that didn't make any sense. So, not believing in strategy, not following a strategy, not taking the time to be strategic or develop a strategy, these are all going to create a big barrier for you trying to level up your organization. And if you are like me, a solopreneur or someone who's like a small organization, looking at ways to outsource, to get support, to develop standard operating procedures, all of those things around financial health or financial well-being as an organization are really, really important. So even if you're a small nonprofit and you're looking at, well, how do I get a grant or how do I get funding? How do I manage it? How do I, do all these things? It seems like it's a barrier. You can always get support to help you through that barrier and to kind of augment what your organization is capable of doing. Failing to invest in help or learning. This is a barrier because a lot of us want to just do our work. I think a lot of people, like I was saying with Sonia, people want to just do good work and have not been in the mindset of thinking about the funding aspect of it. So investing in getting better and putting money towards your goals as professional development or learning skills or marketing your organization, those types of components for social entrepreneurs tend to be something they're reluctant to invest in because they're not sure of the return and they really would rather just give the money directly to the people that benefit or give the services directly to the people who will benefit. So that way, people who are looking at the organization see that the organization does really good work and it's, maybe doing it with less overhead or, all of these kinds of really awesome, amazing things. But at the same time, it could be detrimental to the organization's overall sustainability. So having that investment in becoming a bigger organization, whatever that means for you and your strategy, being able to invest and being willing to invest, those are important pieces of this puzzle. And then the culture piece. You heard this in what we were talking about with Carrie. Having a culture that supports change and is allowing change at an organizational level is really, really difficult sometimes to create if you don't already have a culture of change, right? So if you just are rolling along in this very steady pattern, all of a sudden you decide to make a big organizational change, sometimes people aren't ready for that. And so making sure that you're priming folks for, hey, we are planning to bring on new programs, we are planning to bring on new staff, we are planning to grow in these different ways. And when we add our funding or we add these other funding opportunities, we are going to seek these types of positions. They'll be available, blah, blah, blah. So being transparent about what that looks like for your organization and what change will happen in the future, those are really important parts of the process. All right. And almost lastly, but most importantly, I would say, is that the people who are making decisions and looking at funding and thinking about growing your organizations, you are your own solution, right? Sometimes we kind of feel helpless about our money because we're thinking, oh, I don't have enough clients, or I don't have enough whatever, I don't have enough people coming to my programs. But really, we are the people who can make changes and can actually change the strategy. So we are also the solution, right? And we have time to think about things that make a big difference for our organization. And a couple of core concepts that I wanted to leave with you guys today. Three of them I've had it in various newsletters and things that I've written. So I can definitely send you some links for things if you're interested. Reach out. The first one is restricted versus unrestricted funding. So how do you look at and align all of the money that is restricted by some sort of parameter? That parameter could be a grant or a contract, or some sort of agreement that you have with a client. But having those restrictions on the money and what it's capable of doing as it comes in the door, that's important to know as an organization, so that you can leverage all the money that doesn't have any restrictions. And when you're able to do that, you can really look at what are the key pieces that I need to grow, and what money do I not have? Where are there gaps? And when I'm looking at my strategy for growth, how am I planning to fill those gaps, right? So it's always this needs gaps analysis sort of situation. And restricted versus unrestricted funding, even in businesses, we have this, right? I have contracts that have certain deliverables, so the services that I provide, that restrict my time to provide services to other people, or to do my podcast, or to be live with you guys, right? So there's always some sort of a concept of restricted versus unrestricted funding, time, all those types of things. And you need to understand where that time and money is going in your organization. There's also at least 8 funding streams I can think of for nonprofits that you could be leveraging. And for social businesses, I think you could also leverage about 4 of them. And they're really important for us to know and think about all of the options for funding our businesses or our social enterprises. And I'm not going to go into these today, but I probably should do a live just about these 8, because there's a new one that I just discovered. I don't know if you guys know about payment processing. I didn't know that there's a way that even nonprofits, I guess, you could get money back from the credit cards that you process. So it's a really interesting concept. I just learned about it yesterday in a meeting with a colleague here in Maryland that works for a company that literally saves people on their credit card processing, whether they're business or nonprofit, and then gives that money back to a nonprofit. So it's really kind of a cool concept. So at least 8 funding streams that you could address in your strategy of how you're making an impact and how you're getting the money to make an impact. And hey, everybody I don't know who's still here on Instagram. Oh, of course, it's Gabe and Rodrigo. Hey, guys. And then planning ahead for all aspects of your funding. So I know strategic planning takes time. It takes energy. It's not always the easiest. Sometimes, especially if you're a solopreneur, you need people. You have to bring somebody in to help you, maybe a coach, do your strategic planning. And you need time to think about all of this stuff that is separate from the day-to-day of your organization. And in order for you to be the solution, to be ready to scale up your organization or to scale up your funding, you have to take that time away. You need to dedicate that space away from the regular operations in order to be successful at the strategy and the planning and thinking about all the little steps that you're going to take once you go back into the day-to-day. And you might need to bring some folks in the culture along with you on that change strategy. So it's important for you to be able to check out and to just really hone in and pay attention to those kinds of things. If you guys have questions in the chat, feel free to drop them, because I'm about to just end up really quickly. Bottom line is transformation starts with you. Everybody here in our social impact level up collective is an amazing social entrepreneur who is trying to change the world. And we all have our place that we are putting our energy and supporting our purpose, working in our purpose. And it's important for us to recognize that a lot of the times these organizational changes begin with our own actions and what we're capable of committing to, what we're capable of creating, or we're capable of influencing within our sphere of influence. And with that said, the last thing that I wanted to share today is about the course that I have coming up, where I'm teaching all of these strategies that we talked about today. We talked a lot about the what, like what do we talk, why do we do this work, and what is important about looking at your funding strategy to actually do the work of writing a grant and getting funding and being prepared, being ready, willing, and able, being our own solution for our organization. We need to have the skills that allow us to ask for money. Some of those skills we talked about today, but we will be going through everything from logic modeling to budgeting to grant writing and narrative and grant search and all of these different things, and looking at funding strategies for every level of funding. So I'd love to invite any one of you who are watching this live or watching the replay to join me for that. It starts July 13th and it goes for 8 weeks. We'll go through every aspect of addressing your funding needs and how you are going to use a grant to fulfill them. So looking at your strategy and really digging into those action steps we talked about today. What actions are you going to take in the day-to-day operations in order to successfully scale with a big grant or a grant from your local community even? I'm really excited about this course. This is going to be where I dump all of the years of information that I got from the federal government on how to manage and successfully implement grants into knowledge for you before you even get the money. And the idea with that is to make this a more sustainable space for organizations, because you've gone through that really structured planning process that would typically happen after funding is given to you. And the reason why that planning process exists is because a lot of projects were failing, even though they had the money to do the work. And when that happens, funders are not excited. So these skills that you teach people after they get funding are really important, and just probably even more important before you get funding, because that is when you're able to make a lot of important changes and decisions that will make you successful when you have your money. So thanks everyone for being here. This has been an awesome live, and I hope that you guys learned things that you can apply in your organizations today. And if you have any questions after this live, you can reach out and let me know. I'm always happy to talk to you, and I will share with you where you can find me. Any of our upcoming events we have. Here's the information for the course. It is wendyveloz.com/grant-writing, grant-writing-course. So pretty simple. And it is where you can find all the information about Idea to Impact Art of Sustainable Grant Writing. And then the nonprofit funding streams that I talked about are also available in a blog post, and those are available at wendyveloz.com, and it's nonprofit_funding_streams. So those are the places that you can find basically all this stuff I talked about today. It's out in my website. If you want to go and troll around there's lots of information and resources available for free. And I'm Wendy Veloz. I'm the head of the Social Impact Level Up Collective, and it's good to see you guys. New episodes of the podcast drop every Friday morning, and there will be a new episode tomorrow. It is the episode you saw today featuring Kat. She's her full episode airs tomorrow. And last week's guest, who you also saw today, Carrie, is the episode that is currently up on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. All right, everyone. Talk to you soon. Thanks for being here, guys. Bye. Take care.